Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Around the Table GTA. This episode is going to be the last episode of this season, and it's kind of weird. I have so many ideas, but when it gets to the point or the time for me to do a podcast, I actually just don't want to talk about the topic. So last night I went to sleep super late when I had this idea, but going on with the trend of last night, I ran into someone that I know, but I don't really know. Like every once in a while, we chat, and then it's like a 30-minute, 45-minute chat, and then after we go on our way. But basically, this episode's going to be called "What It's Worth," right? What are you doing with your life, and what is it worth? I think next season is going to be a mix of C theories as well as just deeper topics, because I think that especially with the audience of my podcast, we're all getting older. Even the younger people who are listening to the podcast, we're all getting older. So I think we have to reevaluate the choices that we're making, and we have to see where we're going with all of this. Back to the story. I ran into this person and we were just talking about work in general, and they were like saying that they're looking for a job. And it's not that they have a horrible job. They have a job that they make almost like twice as much as I do, and I make pretty decent money. But they were just talking about the culture and how everything is kind of crazy and people don't care because there's money and people are cutting corners and stuff just to get more money, and the people who've put in their hard work are kind of suffering for it. And it kind of reminded me of like my job situation. And I'm not saying that the people at my workplace are horrible or they're not doing a great job or whatever, but it's small things that cause bigger issues than the same people who are doing those things are complaining about everything. And it made me think, because they were talking about how, they put 10 years into their workplace and they're ready to like get out of there. And 10 years is a long time. So we started talking about things from 10 years ago or between 10 years ago and now. And then there's been so many different things, right? Just to not spill the tea of our topics, because it was more of like a heart-to-heart kind of thing. They're just talking about how, some of the decisions that they made them end up in this situation. And it's not like they didn't want this situation or they couldn't deal with this situation or they're not happy with their life now. But the choices that they made led them to this path, and it's what they have to deal with, right? So again, what is it worth? You have to think about what you're doing in your life, the people that you're around with, the people who influence you, and the things that you do, right? Like for me this summer, I enjoyed my summer a lot, right? If you check out my podcast from last year, I was talking about how I wasted my summer, chasing tail or chasing situations, and I ended up regretting most of the summer. But this summer, even though I've been putting my goal on the back burner, I enjoyed every single minute of this summer. And now I stop and I think, what was it worth, right? Because at the point for my goal, the progress has gone up a bit, right? But at the same time, was it worth wasting my whole summer and not just getting it over with? At the moment, I'm saying yes. At the moment, I'm saying yes, because of everything that I've had to deal with the past couple of years, plus getting off nights, plus wasting an entire summer, which was a pretty bad summer in general because the weather was trash. I think it was like completely worth it. Going back to the original story though, they were talking about like, potentially going on tour or potentially joining the army or potentially doing all of these things, and then something happened and it changed their whole life. And that's the thing, guys. When you have a lot of choices, when you have a lot of ideas, at the end of the day, you can't do everything. Not everything is meant for you. There has to be a path that is chosen, and sometimes you're forced into that path because of a mistake or because you didn't plan right. And at the same time, whatever you're doing now, whoever you're with now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be forever, or it's going to work, or life is going to keep whatever you have in store right now, or even in your mind, the way that it's going to go, right? Like, this person, they were talking about their band was doing super well. They were going to get signed. And then after, the bass player just decided not to come anymore. He was more into the girls than into the music. But, you know, if the bass player uses head, if you guys get signed and you become super popular, then you're going to get even more girls, you idiot. But see, that's the path that could have happened, but it didn't happen because someone chose to focus on different things, right? And that's just how life is, especially when it comes to groups, when it comes to partners. You can't control how someone feels or how someone's going to act in the future. And that's not saying don't shack up, don't partner up, don't have a squad, don't have a group. The thing is, not everyone's going to think the same all the time, every time. Things change, people grow, people stay in a certain mindset, and life affects us all differently, right? So at the end of the day, whatever you're doing, even now, you have to be like, what is it worth? Like, for example, I work Monday to Friday, and this week I had to work on Sunday, and it completely threw off my whole week. Like, I feel like it's Wednesday, but it's only Monday. Yes, guys, I usually do my episodes a couple days ahead of the day that I want to release the episodes, just in case I don't like it. I listen back to it sometimes, or most of the time I listen back to it, just to see, oh, do I sound weird? Is a topic good? Do I feel like the topic's good? Because at the end of the day, I have to like my content as well before I'm sharing it. But either way, like I was saying, it kind of threw off my week, even like my sleep, all of that. It's a little bit off, but it doesn't matter because this week's going to be a short week for me. I'm going fishing with the boys, right? Either way, like I was saying, you know, you got to think of what it's worth. And I have every weekend down packed till the end of summer. I am doing something, and I think that it's appropriate because of all the things that I've missed in the past couple of years, right? And I'm looking at it, what is it worth? It's worth a lifetime of memories, because this summer was pretty wild, and maybe next summer is going to be wilder, but you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You know, recently, like the same week, or not even the same week, it's a different week, but in the last 4 days, my uncle died, and it kind of shook me because I found out like on my way to work on Friday, right? So it's only been 4 days and I'm still trying to process it, but it's really crazy because it's the same uncle that my cousin who died a year ago, I think I also mentioned it on the older podcast, died, right? So it's the same part of the family that's having that pain, right? And it's that thing, you know, what is it worth? What is it worth to go and visit someone and say hi? You never know if it'll be their last waking moment or it'll be your last memory with them, right? You know, unfortunately with me and my uncle, my last memory with him was at the funeral with his son, right? So my cousin, which is pretty crazy. That's the last time I really saw him that I could remember. Maybe he came by the store, but it's not the greatest memory, but I still have many memories of him because I've known him forever, right? So again, I'm going to keep saying the topic of the podcast, what is it worth? You gotta think that every once in a while, and switching up things, talking to different people, being open-minded to another idea at times, it will help you like realign yourself. And I'm not saying that you should change yourself. I'm not saying that how you're living is poor, but it could give you some type of insight for you to potentially even like fix something in your life that you think is very harsh, right? Like, I have friends who used to be like super straight edge, and now they're 420 blaze it. And now I have friends who used to be 420 blaze it, and now they're like in monk mode, right? An experience could change your life, but at the same time, if it's a negative experience, and this is my twist on things, if it's a negative experience, you got to embrace that negative experience and you have to push forward, right? There's too much in life that you could potentially do for you to be stuck in a phase of your life that will haunt the rest of your life, right? Like, I was looking at this thing, and the video was talking about just kind of getting over people and over breakups and everything too. And some people are so crushed when something crazy like that happens. But you have to think about how much time you spent with that person, right? If it's a long time, obviously it's going to take a lot longer to deal with, to heal, to get over it. Like, some people, they're always in a relationship, and some people, once they're out for a while, you know. It's like kind of like a boxing match or like MMA. If you get like knocked out, you know, you're not gonna be fighting for a while because you're rethinking your life. Am I really a good fighter, right? But you can't let that one part of your life impact you in a negative point where you don't want to move, you don't want to go forward. You got to think of, what is it worth? What was that breakup worth? What was getting fired worth? What was, you know, the end of that friendship worth? It could have been a beginning to something better. It might have shown you that maybe you're better off alone in a good sense. Maybe it shows that that workplace undervalued you, and now you could go somewhere where you could fully flourish. Going back to the first story, it was funny because they're talking about leaving, but at the end of the conversation, they were trying to get me hooked up with the job, and I was on the same kind of tip where I'm like, well, you know, if you want a job, I could probably help you out with the job. But at the same time, if there's an opportunity for another job, I'm not completely closing my ears. You know what I'm saying? Right? So they put 10 years in, I put 7 years in. And 10 and 7 years is a long time, especially if you're younger. I think the older you get, it's not as bad, but it's still pretty bad. You know what I'm saying? Right? That's a good chunk of time. So it's a way to stop and think of all the things that you've done in that time. And is it worth it, right? Because the older you get, it's harder to change. It's harder to adapt if you're not as willing. But even then, it's harder to adapt. Like, younger people, children, babies, they adapt. You know, a baby will fall down 700 million times, and then after, they'll keep going because they'll end up walking eventually, unless there's something wrong with the child. And adults don't have that I was gonna say elasticity, but that's definitely wrong. I still said it anyways, so I'm not editing this out. But yeah, you know, they don't have that bounce back effect. I think that's a better term. Yeah, that bounce back effect, because it's just like, what is it worth? I see that with the older people that I deal with at work at the same time. But at the end of the day, we have to see, what is it worth? Like, there's one person at my workplace who's like advocating for older people to get some type of compensation to learn newer things, right? And he's like, oh yeah, you know, it should be a right, and this, because, you know, once you get to a certain age, I feel like it anyways, there's a lot of older people who just think they deserve a lot of things because they've lived life, right? But my hardest insult to some old people is just that, like, you're old for no reason. Like, you lived this long and you still haven't done much with your life, and I don't want to be that type of old person. You know, I want to kind of leave something behind. I think that's a lot of dudes think like that, but I want to be a difference. I want, like, for me, I want to be the reason why someone was inspired to do something, or something positive, hopefully. Right? But, you know, I want to have that effect on people, because there's just so much craziness in the world, and, you know, just being a bit of that light or that change is another reason why I do this podcast. So hopefully this was not a bad episode to end the season. I might get a new intro. I don't know. I love this intro, but we gotta adapt. We gotta change. I was thinking about some video stuff, and I'm going back to the season starter of season 2 just to see what I said that I was gonna start talking about, and see if that actually went through or not. And then I don't know, there's gonna be more stuff, but hopefully I could get some more episodes out this month. Starting this weekend is going to be crazy. I am booked week after week after week after week after week, and I don't know how I'm gonna deal with it, but I'll probably just try to do a bunch of episodes in one season, one sitting. I'm not gonna do that either. I don't care at this point. But hopefully you guys like this episode, and you gotta think, what is it worth? What is it worth to start that new idea? What is it worth to quit your job? What is it worth to ask out that person that you like? What is it worth to change and become a better person? Let me know in the comments. Hopefully you guys like this episode. I'll catch you guys later.